counties together to have a regional conversation about climate change and why we need to pay attention to it. The idea that this is some faraway phenomenon that isn't going to affect us immediately is absolutely not true. In Monroe County already, Ford is not honoring the warranty of their police cars because the salt water that comes up every day at high tide through the storm drains, they're supposed to drain water out of the Keys. In fact, are becoming that very method to bring the water in at high tide from the ocean, and it funnels right up into their streets and it's flooding them. And their first adaptation project is now coming up to build a roadway on Duval Street, one section a foot higher. So it's happening there now on a regular basis. In Miami-Dade, they're experiencing some of the same things we are here in Broward, which is sluggish drainage. If you looked at, particularly following rain events where our canals are at their highest level, our roadways, and I would encourage you at some point today to go out, and I'm sure you guys have lots of windows, go look out at the New River, at where it sits right now at the very edge of the cap. When we're having rain events, we're starting to experience this now, where all of our canals are just coming up so high with water. And Biscayne Bay, where my aide lives, she goes downstairs to walk her dog, the street's underwater, literally underwater by feet on a regular basis, so much so that they are now in the middle of raising that road 2 whole feet. I asked her this morning if she'd go out and take pictures of it, because that's quite astonishing to see one half of the road is finished, constructed, up 2 feet, and the other half is about to come up.
Wow.
The deal. It's the road right in front, right off the bayfront.
Wow.
Yeah, so these things are happening to us now. And the presentation we had by Barry Heimlich, who's with the FAU Center for Urban and Environmental Studies, they did a study recently on the effects of sea level rise. And this is the one I don't know if you have, that I want. And unfortunately, we printed it out as PowerPoint, so some of the elevation maps came out kind of blank. So we'll try to reprint it and get all of the data. But this one demonstrates very clearly what 3 inches of water does to Broward County, what's happening now, and what we can expect in the future, as it's not just sea level rise, but what happens to our freshwater well fields, what happens to our ability to drain off water, our ability to move sewage through our systems, which are generally gravity fed. And there are 28 water utilities in this county that are dealing with these issues. So it's not like in Miami-Dade where you have one county dealing with it. In Palm Beach County, they're experiencing many of the same issues. The Water Management District is now taking a look at how do we deal with the kind of infrastructure changes that we need to make, mostly to our pump stations. And a lot of this water presentation talks about the capacity of the existing pump stations to move water out are only able to handle water in our canal, or built canals that will be able to take water 6 inches up. So they start to fail. We have the need of a great deal of money at some point in the future to have new pump systems set up. And this presentation talks a little bit about that. And then finally, when you look across the country, there are so many people that live in a coastal county. In fact, 50% of the nation's population is in a coastal county. That's 23 different states. When you consider that these effects that we are experiencing in Florida, and certainly South Florida, we're going to experience changes sooner and are more vulnerable than other areas, not just in the country, but on the planet. We know, though, that other coastal states and high immigrant states, such as California, Texas, New York, are going to be experiencing and clamoring for federal dollars, too. The only way I think that we survive the war for dollars in the southern part of the state is to band together and make a good cause for why we have what our regional vision is, what it is we see needing to happen, and that the county governments of all 4 counties have come together to identify, A, that there are issues that are particular to us, B, that we agree in a compact to several issues, and that will be at the end of tomorrow's summit, that the compact will be initially signed, and then it'll go back before all of our respective county commissions on the same day for signing by the whole boards. So I don't know if that was sent over to you all, but this is a copy of the compact. I think this is Broward County's copy that we signed, and then there's a regional one. And this is that's the one our county signed. Broward's already signed the compact. Monroe has already signed the compact, and I think Dade had it on their agenda. I'm not sure if it's this week or next week. To sign, so the draft, and then we'll have a joint one, which is what this one is. So we're kind of excited about the opportunity to bring everybody together and have this conversation. From what I understand, there's no one in the country that has worked to bring 4 counties together, certainly with the population and the need base that we are here. So we're kind of excited about it and excited to see that you guys give us kind of time to talk about it so that we can raise awareness of the issues. So with that, I guess we'll start to my left with Bob to talk about the bigger picture, the federal picture.
I brought you some homework. And what I'd like to talk to you about is the very real national security implications of climate change, both within the United States and around the world. And let me start out by saying, I spent 32 years in the Army, and one of the things the military has to do, is take a look at trends, conditions, both immediate, short-term, and long-term, in terms of current emerging threats to national security, and then think through, on a risk management kind of basis, those steps that we need to take in order to deal with that risk, minimize it, be able to respond to it. And that has been going on within the Department of Defense, the Central Intelligence Agencies, other parts of the national security structure with regard to climate change for some years now. And senior military people, senior intelligence officials are very hard-headed people in the sense they're driven by data, not rhetoric, not ideology. They look at the information and they make their judgments. One thing they don't do, because they can't do, is do nothing until the information is perfect. So they take a look at trend data, the information, the consensus, and make their risk management judgments on that. In a sense, it's a national security insurance type outlook. And a great many of these very hard-headed, data-driven people have taken a look at this and reached the following conclusions. Climate change is real. It's accelerating. Its impacts globally, particularly on fragile states, will have serious geopolitical and security implications. It will be an accelerant to future conflicts, humanitarian crises, that will have serious national security implications and geopolitical challenges for not just the United States, but for the developed world and the world at large. And that this problem is inextricably linked with our energy system. In dealing with mitigating climate change, of necessity, involves restructuring our energy system away from fossil fuels. And then they also recognize that the impacts are now. These are not future things that, maybe happen in 50 years. They're happening now. And where they're seen most readily is in the states around the world least capable of dealing with it. And it's already accelerating conflict. And so not only is there a need to mitigate the extent of climate change by addressing our energy system and other things that cause climate change to worsen, there is a need right now, and certainly a greater need in the future, to take steps to adapt to the impacts of climate change. And that's particularly critical, again, in fragile states. Rich Engel, retired Major General Air Force with the National Intelligence Council, gave a briefing recently. The National Intelligence Council did an assessment, unclassified, of the global and regional impacts of climate change and reached many of the same conclusions that a distinguished board of retired military people convened by CNA, a Washington national security think tank, reached. And the clear consensus among national security experts is the impacts are real, the effects are real, and the time to take action to mitigate the extent of climate change and to take action to adapt to climate change is right now. I mean, that's kind of a global perspective.